Hi everyone and welcome to SOLIDWORKS Model Mania made in Fusion 360. Today we are going to take up the challenge of Model Mania year 2013. Let's begin by first inspecting our 2D drawing. And notice here, on this view, the dimensions are referencing this point. With this in mind, we are going to place our origin here, same with the center point of this hole or circle. And let's sketch this geometry into our XZ plane. So that whenever we head to front view in Fusion 360, this view will be the front. Let's head back to Fusion 360. I'm going to hit C for circle, and this automatically leads us to sketch mode. So now we are asked what plane or planar face do we want to sketch to. So once more, we are going to sketch on the XZ plane. Selecting this, let's drop our center point into our origin. The inner circle's dimension is 30. Repeating circle, I can right click, head up and select repeat center diameter circle. And this time our outer circle is 40. Hitting enter, and let's clean our dimensions up. Left click and hold to place this here. Selecting 30, left click and hold, placing this here. Moving forward, let me zoom out and let's create another circles. The one to be placed here, so I'm going to hit C for circle. Let's create a circle here, left click. So notice I did not input any value or dimension for now. Creating another circle somewhere around here, left click. Create another circle, concentric with this circle. Left click here. Create another circle here, left click and left click. Hitting escape. And now let's add dimensions. I'm going to hit D for dimension. Let's dimension this inner circle to be 20. Dimension tool still active. This one, let's turn this to 15. Next, let's head over to the right. Select this inner circle, this one to be 15. And this circle to be 20. Let me zoom in and clean the position of these dimensions. And notice the circles here has the same dimensions with the circles here. So with that in mind, I'm going to have the dimensions of the circles over here copy the dimensions of the circle over here intelligently. And that intelligence is, I'm going to double click 15. Next, with this dimension highlighted in blue, I'm going to select this 15 over here, which means the dimension of this circle is now the same as this circle, having the parameter dimension or parameter ID of D4. So I'm going to hit enter. Same with the 20, double left click. With this dimension highlighted, I'm going to select D3, the parameter name of this 20 dimension. D3 now here, I'm going to hit enter. And notice as I change the value of this dimension, let's say 25, this is now also 25. I'm going to hit undo. Let's add some constraints. Notice here the center point of the circles need to be aligned to our origin horizontally. So I'm going to head up to constraints, selecting horizontal, selecting this center point and the center point or our origin. In addition, notice here, for these dimensions, we plugged in a parameter ID. In addition, I can also select an equal constraint to have these two circles same with the dimensions over here. Next, I'm going to grab our line tool, hitting L, create a line from our origin going to the center point of these circles, hitting escape. Next, I am going to turn this line into a construction line by hitting X on our keyboard. Let me hit D for dimension and let's add some dimensions, selecting this center point and this center point. Let's place our dimension here, left click, key in 70, selecting this center point and the center point. Let's place our dimension here, key in 22. Next, selecting this center point and the center point. Let's move our cursor to the right. Left click here to place our dimension and key in 36. And notice before we added dimensions and constraints, all of these entities were once in the color of blue. And notice now it's all black. And in addition, that means these are all now fully defined, as I cannot force to move them any longer. Moving forward, let's add the arcs to connect these circles. I'm going to hit S for shortcuts and I'm going to type ARC and we are going to select 3-point arc. Let me zoom in. Left click here on this intersection and left click here at this intersection. I'm going to move down and notice the inferred tangent constraint on the right. I'm going to commit to that. Left click, create another arc from this intersection. Left click here on this circle at the right. Notice once more the inferred tangent. Left click. Let's drop our point here at this intersection. Left click at this intersection and notice once more the inferred tangent constraint. Hitting escape. Next, let's add the tangent constraints on this entities. I'm going to head up to constraints, selecting tangent, selecting this arc and this circle, this arc and this circle, this arc and this circle. Hitting escape. Next, I'm going to hit D for dimension and let's dimension this arcs. Let's start off by selecting this arc, the value to be 80, hitting escape. Next, this two arcs also has a radius of 80. So I'm going to select this arc, hold control and select this arc, right click. Once more for you to see, right click and select equal. Notice equal constraint still active. I'm going to select this arc and this arc. Hitting escape. Moving forward, let's offset this arcs by a value of 3. So I'm going to hit O for offset. And I'm going to disable chain selection. Selecting this arc. I'm going to move this slider down, key in 3. Let's repeat offset. I'm going to right click to enable our marking menu. Selecting repeat offset, selecting this arc. Next, notice this dimension field is currently highlighted and I prefer the value of this offset to be 3 as well. So with this highlighted, I'm going to identify the parameter ID of this 3 dimension. So I'm going to hit cancel for now. Hover over 3. So notice the parameter ID is D11. With that in mind, I'm going to select offset once more. Select this arc and key in D11. Hitting enter. Repeating the steps, right click, selecting repeat offset. Let's offset this arc as well and key in D11. Hitting enter. Let's trim out the excess entities. I'm going to hit T, which is the shortcut for trim. Let's start by trimming out this excess arc segment. So notice, whenever we do trim, we may possibly lose a constraint or dimension. Selecting this portion of this arc. Let's trim this one. Left click this one. Let's trim out this one. Selecting this. Let's move to the other arc, trimming this out. Let's trim this out. Same with this arc segment. Hitting escape. And notice, we lose all of our dimensions. So I'm going to hit D once more. Let's dimension the distance between these two arcs to be 3. I'm going to hit escape and let's identify the parameter ID of this dimension, which is a D14. Hitting D4 dimension, let's dimension this to D14, hitting enter. Same with this arcs, D14. And finally, selecting this arc and this arc, key in D14. Hitting escape. Our sketch now fully defined or fully constrained. And from here, we're going to select Finish Sketch. Let's turn this sketch into 3D. I'm going to hit E, which is the shortcut for extrude. And for our target profiles, it will be this 3 cylinders. Next, I'm going to pull this arrow to the left. And for the distance of the cylinders, it will be, because we are in the negative direction, I'm going to key in -20 or -20. Operation, new body, selecting OK. And notice, because these bodies are not touching each other, in this instance, we have created 3 separate solid bodies. Let's reuse our sketch 1, and I'm going to turn on its visibility by selecting this eyeball. Let's hit E for extrude and select this profiles. Notice I have 5 profiles selected. Let's move this arrow. And to be exact, I'm going to key in -12. And for the operation, we're going to change this to new body. Selecting OK. Moving forward, let's hollow out this body by applying a shell. So I'm going to head up to modify, and before that, let's turn off the visibility of these 3 cylinders. Together with our sketch 1, let's now head up to modify and select shell. Now for the faces or body, I'm going to exclude this faces. Holding control and selecting this face as well and this face. For the inside thickness, it will be 3. In addition, let's also add this face as well. So holding control and left click. Inspecting. Let's now select OK. So take note of its direction to be inside. Next, let's turn on the visibilities of these bodies. I'm going to select body 1, hold shift, and select body 3. And the shortcut for turning on its visibility is simply hitting V on our keyboard. And finally, I'm going to head up to Modify and select Combine. Target body, any of the four will do. Let's select body 4. And for the tool bodies, let's select this 3 cylinders. Operation to be joined, and I'm going to disable new component and keep tools. Selecting OK. Let's wrap things up by adding fillets. The shortcut for that is hitting F. Let's now select all of this edges. Selecting this edge, selecting this edges. This edge and this edge. The radius to be 1.5. Notice we have an error. As we select all of the target edges, this error will soon be gone. Adding this edge as well. And this edge. Let's check. Okay, so the error is now gone. Leaving the defaults, selecting OK. And congratulations for completing phase 1 of this 2013 Model Mania Challenge. Thank you so much for reaching up to this point in the video. Inviting you to join us in Facebook. It's Autodesk Fusion 360 User Group Philippines. And in LinkedIn, we are Fusion 360 Worldwide Users. Lastly, support us by subscribing to Autodesk Community Philippines as we train more students and educators into the world of Autodesk. Welcome back for the Phase 2 of Model Mania 2013. And the prominent change for Phase 2 is notice the cylindrical bodies has a new position. Let's now head back to Fusion 360. I'm going to move my timeline marker, left click and hold before shell was created. And notice here we have 4 separate bodies. What we're going to do next is we're going to move our body 2. So selecting body 2, let's head over to our top view and select this curved arrow pointing to the left. I'm going to zoom in. With the body 2 selected, I'm going to hit M for move. I'm going to move this body up. And to be exact, we're going to key in 4. Selecting OK. And let's check if this body is at the middle. I'm going to hit I for measure, selecting this face and this face. The distance between them is 4. Let's restart selection. Now the distance of this face and this face should be 4 as well. So we're on the right track. Selecting close. Let's head back to top view. And this time we're going to move body 3 up. With body 3 selected, I'm going to hit M for move. And let's move this body up. The edge of this body collinear with this edge. And to be exact, we're going to key in 8. Hitting enter. And let's inspect. I'm going to hit I for measure the distance of this face and this cylinder's face should be 0. So let's select this face and this face. So correct, it's 0. Let's now select close, head to our home view. Let's unsuppress a shell and inspect, moving our timeline marker, inspecting. Next, let's unsuppress combine. Let's grab our 2D drawing and notice this time the thin wall feature is reversed and placed to the other side. Heading back to Fusion 360. Moving forward, our next intent is to move this feature parallel with this face. And for my personal preference, what I'm going to do is head over to Surface tab, and under Create, we're going to select Offset. The target face would be this face. Next, let me move this arrow. And to be exact, I'm going to key in 9. Let's inspect, Operation U body, and selecting OK. Moving forward, let's turn this surface body into a solid body. And to do that, I'm going to hit S to grab our shortcuts, typing TH and selecting thicken. Let's move this arrow to the other side and key in -3. And for us to see the change, I'm going to head over to top view and rotate this. Notice here as I press Ctrl 7 for wireframe view, this is now the new solid body. Heading back to shaded view, which is Ctrl 6 and Operation U body, selecting OK. Let's now remove this material over here. Let me turn off the visibility of a body 6. Next, I'm going to select this face and hit E for extrude. Let me move our arrow to the other side. And for the extent type, I'm going to change this to object. And that will be up to this face. So notice the material removed. Operation cut, selecting OK. Let's now turn on the visibility of a body 6. Once more, hit S for our shortcuts, typing CO and selecting combine. Let's now combine these two solid bodies, selecting body 4. For the tool bodies, selecting body 6. Operation join and selecting OK. Let's now unsuppress our fillet. And notice it has errors, so I prefer suppressing this once more. Reselecting our fillet, right click and suppress features. Let's add a new set of fillets, hitting F, and let's select this edges. Selecting this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge. Let's head to the back. Selecting this edges. Selecting this edge, and this edge. Also this edge. And for the radius, once more, it's 1.5. Inspecting once more. Leaving the defaults and selecting OK. And congratulations for completing our phase 2. And join me in the next video as we conduct a simulation study to determine this model's factor of safety. Let's now create a simulation study. And before that, let's clean up our bodies. I'm going to select the surface, right click, and select remove. The advantage of remove is we can still bring back that surface by simply suppressing this or deleting that remove command. Hitting undo. Next, let me delete this fillet that we had in the previous phase. Hitting delete. And an important reminder, in order to perform a simulation study, this model needs to be saved in the cloud. Let's now save this model by hitting Ctrl S or selecting this diskette. Let's name this as 02-sim. And now let's select Save. Model saved in the cloud. We are currently in the design workspace. Let's now change our workspace to simulation. Prompted to select a new study, let's select static stress. Double left click on this. And before we begin, I want you to take note of a pre-check. So notice it is now an X mark. Notice as I click pre-check, it gives us the list of requirements to be done in order for us to finally select solve. The typical workflow in conducting a static stress simulation is from left to right, which means we must first define the materials, constraints, loads, and moving to the right, finally selecting solve. Let's now define the material. Heading over to materials, selecting study materials. Let's head over to this drop down and look for plain carbon steel. Scrolling down, and let's select steel carbon. Selecting this, selecting OK. Next, let's define the constraints. Selecting structural constraint. For the type, it will be fixed. The axis, let's enable UX, UY, UZ. For the target, it will be this cylindrical face. Selecting this, selecting OK. Let's now apply loads. Heading over to loads, selecting structural loads. The type to be force and the target to be this cylindrical face. And for the force, it will be 500 newtons. In addition, make sure under change units, the unit is Newton. Typing in 500 for the magnitude. Next, let's define the direction of the force. I'm going to grab this rotate handle, and to be exact, let's key in -180. And finally, selecting OK. Notice under pre-check, it's now a green check mark, which gives us the green light to finally select solve. Let's now select solve. And notice here we have two options: to conduct the simulation using the cloud or locally using the processing power of our machine. So let's save some cloud credits, selecting locally and selecting solve. Simulation done. Notice We have a factor of safety minimum at a 4.82. Selecting close. Notice on the right, we have here our color bar. And under safety factor results, our result for the factor of safety is at the green region, and denoting our design is satisfactory. The highest would be reaching this blue region. In addition, under this drop down, we have the options to view the results for stress. Once more, let's move this triangle. Moving forward, we can view the displacement, the reaction force, and the strain. Let's head over to front view, and under displacement, we have the option here for deformation. We can view the model undeformed, the actual. So notice the actual is almost, there's no deformation. But take note, the deformation is very small. And this one, the adjusted, gives us an exaggerated result. In addition, take note, mesh plays an important role in the calculation of the study. The higher the mesh resolution is, the more computing power it requires. So notice here, we can toggle the mesh visibility. And lastly, under results, let me show you animate. But before that, let's change the results view to stress. Heading back to animate, let's head over to front view. And let's enable two-way and hit the play button. From here, challenging you to conduct a static stress simulation study on Phase 1 model. The question is, which of the two has a greater factor of safety? And that's conducting a simulation static stress study using Model Mania 2013 in Fusion 360.